everybody, this is Pastor Megan at virtualgrace.net, and I am going to tell you today how you can show someone who is LGBTQIA that you love them. That you love them as a friend, that you love them as a parent, that you love them as a faithful person, that you love them in whatever way that you love them. This is how to do it. If you're interested in information on how to love someone who identifies as trans, you can look to the link in the description below, and that will give you additional details that you can watch after this video if you'd like more of them. Number one, you're going to honor their self-identifications. Does this mean that every single person you see that you want to care for in the LGBT community, you're going to walk up to them and say, "How do you identify?" Yes, it does. If you don't know them very well, that's a really great way to start a conversation. It's way easier to ask someone information about themselves when you first meet them than to ask them a whole bunch of questions that you should have known like months ago. But just know that if you are feeling awkward because you've known someone for a while and you haven't asked them questions about how they identify, or it didn't occur to you, or you didn't know to do so before you watched this video, that's okay too. There are some subtle ways that you can ask people how they identify. And that is just to ask someone any question and listen to how they answer it. You don't have to say to someone, "Are you a lesbian?" That's awkward, and you probably shouldn't do it unless you're interested in dating them. But the way that you can ask this question subtly is to ask people who are the people in your family that are important to you, and then listen to how they talk about them and how they describe them. Then what you're going to do is use the words they use to describe themselves. However, one caveat on this is that if you're not a lesbian, you shouldn't use the word dyke. If you're not a gay man, you probably shouldn't use the word fag. If you're not a queer identified person, you probably, unless it's someone's specific identity and they say, "Please call me queer," you probably shouldn't use the word queer if you're not an LGBTQIA person yourself. So, just like other communities, there are some terms that are for people who are a part of that community and some terms that are not for people who are a part of that community. If you want to learn more about that, there are some really great lists about what you should or should not say on the Human Rights Campaign website and on the GLAAD website. That's GLAAD with 2 A's. And it's a website that talks to people in the media about how to describe people who are LGBTQIA. I'll put the links on the Virtual Grace portion of this talk so that you can learn more about which words you should and should not use. But for the most part, people, when they describe themselves, might use the term wife or spouse or significant other. There's no right or wrong way because everyone is really different. So if you use significant other for everyone, that might make some people feel really welcome and other people feel excluded. If you use spouse for everyone, that might make some people feel really welcome and some people feel excluded. So, be a good listener and use the terms people actually use for themselves. This can be hard. It could mean that you forget. If you don't see someone for 6 months and then you forget what their terms are. That's really great that you forgot, because it gives you another chance to listen to how they describe themselves and use the terms that they're currently using. During that 6 months, their identifications might have changed. Their feelings about the term significant other might have changed. The laws might have changed. And so just be present with people, and whatever language they're currently used to describe themselves, trust that person to know themselves better than anyone else in the world. But you don't need to have conversations with other people about how someone identifies. Just listen to them. Say, "Tell me more about that." Learn more about someone or about their self-identification when you're listening to them is, "Tell me more about that." And especially if it's a subject matter you don't know very much about, you might think, I feel really stupid right now. I don't know what's happening in this conversation. You can either pretend you know things you don't, choose to say the wrong things because you're not educated on a subject, or simply say, tell me more about that. Saying, tell me more about that, means I'm interested in you because I care about you, not, you're such a foreign thing to me that I need you to educate me. See how that can go bad if you ask a different question? So let's repeat the question with me. Tell me more about that. Once you are outside of someone's presence, and you can no longer say, tell me more about that to them, you do not have the expectation that someone else is going to teach you about their culture, right? You are going to educate yourself. So when you're in someone's presence, if they say something you don't know very much about, you say, tell me more about that. When you're not in their presence and you have a question about their life or about an identification or a term they said, or you're not sure if you're saying it right, you're gonna educate yourself. Number 3, you're going to educate yourself. 2 ways. Learn about ways that people have harmed their community, and learn about exemplary people who have made our whole world better by being their full, fabulous LGBTQIA self. You're going to educate yourself by learning how people of that culture have been wounded by people in the past. So that means if you're meeting someone who is asexual for the first time, you're going to look up difficulties of being asexual. And the more you stick to history sites, as opposed to sites that are going to hypersexualize or try to monetize the sexuality of individuals, probably the more accurate the information you're going to get. Places like PFLAG and advocacy organizations might provide better information than other spaces. You can also go to the local library and you can look up information there. But just know that the LGBTQIA books are most likely stolen from the library because people are too ashamed to check them out because they think it will be like on their library card list forever. You have to learn how they've been wounded, particularly how they've been wounded by people like you. So if you are a person of faith, you need to look up ways that the faith community has done harm to the LGBT community, right? And that's going to involve learning about awful things people have said during the AIDS crisis, awful things people have said when there's like a hurricane, awful things that have happened in times when very famous LGBTQ individuals have been murdered or killed. If you're a parent, you need to learn how families have hurt people. Ellen DeGeneres' mom has a really good book about that. So look up ways that the LGBT community has not only been wounded, but wounded by people like you so that you can avoid some of those things. And you can't just stop there, because just knowing how people have been harmed or hurt or taken advantage of leads you to have the impression that the life of people who identify that way is terrible and can only be terrible. It makes it really hard to root for people if you only know ways that they've been killed or that they've been discriminated. When you are looking up how LGBTQ people have made the world a better place, you're going to do it from the lens of people being heroes. There are so many people who have won the Nobel Prize for LGBTQIA. There's a lot of LGBTQIA Olympians. There's a lot of poets, a lot of artists, a lot of people who have made culture better. Can't just learn about the stuff that's easy, like documentaries like drag queen documentaries. That is a really fun part of the gay community, but it's only one part of the gay community. Look up things like LGBTQI Hall of Fame. Whenever there's a gay pride parade, learn more about the Grand Marshals. That will just diversify the number of people that you have heard of. If you haven't heard of Baird Rustin, you're going to want to watch Brother Outsider. If you haven't heard of Harvey Milk, you're going to want to watch one of the movies about Harvey Milk. There's a number of people that you can learn about who are good and kind people. And you're not gonna just now bring them up in every conversation you have. What would it feel like if every time you saw someone who was Black or African American, if every time you saw them, you brought up the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? How would they feel? So that's not why you're looking up people who are heroes or successful in this community. You're looking them up because you need to be able to be an effective cheerleader for this person you want to love. And that's number 4. Number 4, be a cheerleader. Rah! People who are LGBTQIA have a number of health issues in their body that affect them due to the discrimination that's happening to them from the outside world. So because they are more vulnerable to discriminatory laws, because they have likely had an experience of bullying in their life, because they might or might not have had a family who is able to support them or a faith community that's able to support them, you're going to be a cheerleader for all of the people who weren't able to cheer for them. Not yet, at least, right? So they might not have had a mom who made t-shirts with their face on it and cheered for them at whatever sport they love. They might not have had the ability to go to the prom and take photos in a way that was overly gushing. So you get to, in their more adult life or their older life, you get to be that person who just cheers for them. But when you're a cheerleader, you don't point out every time when you think they might fail. You don't point out what you don't like about all of their relationships. Your job, because you're trying to tell them you love them, is to root for them, to hope for the best for them. Does it mean ignoring things that are going to go terribly wrong? Sometimes, but not all the time. Anyway, loving people is hard. You're going to figure out your way to do it. But err on the side of rooting for people. Number 5, and most important way to show LGBTQIA people that you love them, tell them. Tell them that you love them, right? Actually say the words. You can send a card if you'd prefer. You can get balloons. You can give them a teddy bear. Anything that pertains to Valentine's Day, you can do it. If you're not romantically in love with them, make that really clear in how you tell them that you love them. But hopefully, honoring their self-identifications, asking them to tell you more about things, educating yourself, and being a cheerleader for them will already have shown them in physical and emotional ways that you love them. The last thing you really have to do is just say, you know what, I love you. Can you tell me more about that? Tell me more about that. That's so interesting. I don't know much about it. Can you tell me more about that? See? It's really true, guys. I made this video because I love you and I'm a cheerleader for you. I know that we can bridge this gap between people feeling like they're not loved and the people who want to love them. The more we can root for each other, the better our world is going to be, especially in times like this. You are an amazing person because you made it to the end of this video because you truly want to love somebody. That's really awesome, and I love you for it. Thank you, guys.